Yeah, everyone. So, are you ready? Yeah. You ready for more? Yeah. Are you cold? I think some of you are cold. Because I think you're suffering because it made me happy. That's what's going on. So it's unfortunate, isn't it? Either it's so it's kind of a bit unfair because so many of you, I'm only one, and I'm happy, but many of you are suffering a little bit. Some of you are happy. Anyway, that's the problem with being made in Norway. You have a different feeling for these things. Okay, so we're going to carry on. At the end of the session, we can briefly advertise 𝐵𝑢𝑑𝑑𝑐𝑡 retreat. Eileen, should we do that? Yeah, and I can say a few words as well, just to hand up, because he's my friend, so I can say a few things about him at the end. Yeah, good idea. So we're going to carry on where we left off. And we looked at the idea of the perceptions related to things like metta and compassion, overcoming ill will, overcoming ruthlessness. We don't want to be so ruthless. Are there many ruthless people here? When we think about people being ruthless, yeah, they don't. This is, I think, a problem sometimes in the business world. Yeah, you're not doing anything wrong, really. You're keeping the laws, but you don't really care much about how it affects other people. That can be a problem. So we're going to look at this, and we're going to look at the sutta that I look at every retreat. So those of you who have been to many of my retreats before, you will hear it again. And please remember that when you hear suttas again, it doesn't mean that it has to be boring or terrible. It's just a chance to renew your understanding of these things. Yeah, I read this suttas many, many times every year whenever I do retreats and things, and I actually enjoy. I usually enjoy it. Yeah, I was going to say every time. Yeah, actually, I enjoy it every time, but of course, it's a little bit. It varies a little bit. So try to have that thing they call the Zen mind, beginner's mind. They have the beginner's mind to seeing things with fresh eyes, and then it allows you to gain a deeper perspective on these things. So we're going to have a look at the sutta overcoming resentment. Is that what it's called here? Yes, it is. And this is found in the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses, the fives, number 162. So they're all there for you to read, and they're all available on Sutta Central if you're interested. And this is another sutta with Venerable Sariputta. So lots of suttas with him, and basically it is, as the Buddha says himself, if anyone is going to carry on the teaching of the Dhamma, it is him. So so it is basically almost equivalent to the word of the Buddha. I'm going to take a little bit of water to drink. Someone told me that they felt funny when someone is drinking, so now I feel a bit self-conscious about drinking the water. But please don't be upset for me drinking a bit of water. This night's with it. It's nice and warm water, just perfect for the throat, so that's good. So let us get started. So it begins as follows. There, the Venerable Sariputta addressed the mendicants. Reverend mendicants, Reverend, they replied, and Sariputta said this. Reverends and mendicants should use these 5 methods to completely get rid of resentment when it has arisen towards anyone. What 5? In the case of a person whose behavior by body is impure, but whose behavior by speech is pure, you should get rid of resentment for that kind of person. In the case of a person whose behavior by speech is impure, but whose behavior by body is pure, you should get rid of resentment for that kind of person. In the case of a person whose behavior by body and speech is impure, but who gets an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time, you should get rid of resentment for that kind of person. In the case of a person whose behavior by body and speech is impure, and who does not get an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time, you should get rid of resentment for that kind of person. And in the case of a person whose behavior by body and speech is pure, and who gets an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time, you should get rid of resentment for for that kind of person. So that is the sutta in brief. This is like the synopsis, if you like, of this one, and then you come the detailed exposition afterwards. And why does he divide the people up in these 5 ways? And the reason is that, first of all, these 5 ways, that includes everyone. There's no one left out. Yeah, so you can't really have resentment towards anyone. So if you have your favorite person to have resentment towards, you're going to have to let go of that one. Sorry, yeah, that's the first thing to see from this. Yeah, we shouldn't really have resentment towards anyone in the world or ill will there. And this is, I think, one of those really nice things about the Buddhist path when we practice in the right way, is the idea of having everyone in the world, not having any enemies in the world. There's something very beautiful about that, yeah, where either you have compassion or you have a sense of kindness and metta for everyone in the whole world, no enemies. Yeah, it's a beautiful way of living one's life. And I think as Buddhists who take the Buddhist practice seriously, that is exactly how we should live. Yeah, no enemies. And if other people want to be our enemy, well, that is their problem. It's got nothing to do with us. Well, they're going to have to deal with that. And it's a bad idea to be enemies with people who are good people. Yeah, it's not a good idea. It means that they have a problem, not we. That's kind of a nice way of thinking about it. And so these are the 5 ways, and the reason why it is divided in 5 is because our attitude, our approach is going to be a little bit different depending on what sort of character the other person has, yeah, how to deal with that person. That's why Venerable Buddha makes this kind of division there. It's kind of nice, isn't it? This is Venerable Sariputta. He's like the general of the Dhamma, yeah, the Dhamma Senapati. Senapati is a general, like the lord of the army, quite literally. And you'd think someone like that would give really profound and deep teachings. And of course he does. Yeah, but he also has a very kind of good insight in general into the human mind. So even kind of more simple things like how to have compassion, how to have metta, even that he kind of deals with. That's kind of nice. Yeah, someone who is truly wise, they come across in a very beautiful way. There's something about someone like Venerable Sariputta where, you know, there's a famous story where his robe is kind of falling off a little bit. There's a little bit kind of on the side or whatever. And there's a little novice, yeah, a kind of little snotty child. No, I shouldn't say that. That's how kind of sometimes how people think about little children, right? And it's kind of unfair. But a little novice, maybe he wasn't that little even. Maybe he was kind of 12, 13, 14. It's not that small. And then he points out to Venerable Sariputta, oh, look, your robe is not on properly here. And so he looks, the novice is right, the robe is not on properly, so he readjusts the robe. And then he says, thank you, teacher, to the little novice. Yeah, it's kind of really sweet, isn't it? It's really nice. This is like the most wisest person after the Buddha in the history of Buddhism, probably. And this is how you react. It's kind of a really humble, yeah, it's not when you are really knowledgeable and you have a profound understanding. It doesn't actually do anything to your ego. Deep understanding diminishes your ego. Anyone who has a big ego does not have a lot of wisdom. A lot of wisdom diminishes the ego. And so it's kind of beautiful. And these are the people who are called superior people in the world. And they are superior people, but precisely because the ego goes down. That's how you are superior. So anyways, I have a lot of kind of affection almost for Venerable Sariputta. It's weird. I don't know anything much about him apart from the suttas, but I feel a kind of affection towards people like that. Him, Venerable Ananda, you know, some of these very beautiful people. So anyway, let's see what he has to say about these 5 cases. Okay, in the case, yeah, how should you get rid of resentment for a person whose behavior by body is impure, but whose behavior by speech is pure? Suppose a mendicant wearing rag robes sees a rag by the side of the road. They would hold it down with the left foot, spread it out with the right foot, tear out what is intact and take it away with them. In the same way, at that time, you should ignore that person's impure behavior by way of body and focus on their pure behavior by speech. That is how to get rid of resentment or ill will, if you like, for that person. Yeah, so it is very simple and really easy. It's a beautiful simile that tells us how to do this. This rag simile of the rag robe wearing mendicant, yeah, bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, who wears rag robes. It's really nice to wear rag robes. It's kind of, in those days, these days wearing rag robes, these days cloth is easy to come by. In those days cloth was very expensive. And so wearing rag robes was an idea of simplicity. You would kind of pick up rags here and there and you would have a rag robe. And if you go down to a monastery in Serpentine, you find some of the monks have rag robes in the present day. They kind of just have bits and pieces. It's kind of nice to see someone having a rag robe. I used to have a rag robe when I was still baby monk, but 20 over years ago, 20 whatever years ago. And it's kind of nice. And I used to travel around the world in my rag robe. We come into Changi Airport and you go in these rags. Yeah, it's kind of really nice. Everything in Changi Airport is the most beautiful airport. Yeah, it's really fancy. It's always voted as the best airport in the world, and you can see why. And then you get this dodgy monk coming through. Yeah, it doesn't match with the beauty of the place. That was nice. And I remember some of the senior monks, they were telling me, oh, you should kind of get a proper robe, when you travel around the world, you could teaching, these kind of things. But Ajahn Brahmali always took my side. No, it's good. It's nice that you wear a rag robe. So I kind of wore this rag robe everywhere. And it's actually really it's kind of neat. So I should do it now. So I apologize for not having a rag robe, but now I have this one here. Anyway, that's how it goes sometimes. So this is real. Yeah, people have always worn rag robes, and there's actually something very nice about it. It feels good to wear something that has absolutely no value, and it just does what it has to do to keep you warm or whatever. So anyway, so this is a person, a monk wearing rag robes, yeah, and of course you're always on the lookout for rags because a rag robe has a tendency to fall apart. And then you see a rag by the roadside, and you are, hey, rag by the roadside. You pick it up, and rags by the roadside, they are sometimes not fit for wearing straight away. You have to check them out, which parts are good, which parts are bad. So you hold it down with one foot, you spread it out with the right foot so you can see what is there, and then you see the part of it is rotten and dodgy, you tear it off, and then you take away the other part with it. Yeah, you tear it off because it's rubbish. You throw it out, and you take the good part with you, and you use that when you are ready for use in the future. And so this was what happened at that time. In the same way, yeah, when someone has we are all very complicated people. We have a large number of characteristics and qualities, and some of those qualities are going to be good, and some of them are going to be bad. So imagine you kind of spread out the qualities of the person in your mind's eye, and you have the good qualities, the bad, and everything in between. You see it all. You kind of gather all the bad qualities over there, the good ones over here. You tear down the middle, and you take the bad ones, you crunch it up. And what you do with it, you throw it out. Yeah, you throw it in the toilet or whatever, you flush it down because it needs to go where all the bad things go, down the toilet, down the drain. And then you take those good qualities, you fold it up nicely, and you take it with you, carry it with you in your heart or in your mind for the future. Yeah, why? Because then when you need to remind yourself of the good qualities of this person, you can take it out and you can remind yourself of the good qualities. The bad qualities, they've already been flushed out. You can't even remember them anymore. Yeah, they're all gone. They are completely gone. And it's very beautiful when this works. Yeah, because you're training the mind over time to see the good qualities in people around you. And in a group like this, yeah, like the Buddhist Fellowship or any Buddhist group where people are practicing, it is not difficult to see the good qualities. At the very least, people will have a good intention there. No one comes on a retreat like this unless they have a good intention there. And that good intention, wanting to live your life well, wanting to do the right thing, is worthy of enormous respect, just that intention there. Yeah, because that means that someone is trying it. Of course, we don't succeed always because our habits from the past are so strong. Yeah? Because the habits are so strong, we still make mistakes. But the fact that you have intention means that you're now on the road to turn around your supertanker. Yeah, we mentioned the supertanker the other day. Yeah? And just slowly, the supertanker comes around. But it's still, the momentum is very strong. Yeah? You're still going to make many mistakes as a consequence. So this is the idea, and then you remind yourself of this again and again and again. And I have seen this happening in my life sometimes. Yeah, you see how people, like for example, take your family members. Yeah, my father died, 3 years ago, something like that. I can't remember now, 3 or 4 years ago. And when you have parents or family, the relationships are often quite complicated because you have so much time together in that. But I remember the time came, yeah, when you're thinking back on your father, and I couldn't think of anything negative anymore. All I could think of was good qualities. Yeah, everything I could think of was like all the good things that happened, all the nice things that happened in that relationship, and all the negative had been wiped from my mind, as if it didn't exist anymore. And it's a very beautiful thing when that happens, because at that moment, you have this tremendous sense of gratitude, a sense of friendship, a sense of love almost for that person. Why? Well, because all you see is the good qualities. So it works, yeah. And this is because you actively develop that mind, you cultivate that perception, and suddenly one day everything is kind of completely changed. You can't even remember. It's not as if I was trying to remember the bad. Of course, not even trying, but it doesn't come to mind. All that comes to mind are the positive things. And that taught me when that happened that this is really powerful. Yeah, these things work. These are real. This is not to be underestimated, these kind of things. So when there are people who have good qualities, do this sort of practice. And after a while, all you can see is the good qualities. Yeah, it's kind of nice. I have to admit, I find it really nice to sit up here and I look out. And when I look at all of you, what I see is really good people. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I know many of you, I know many of you for years, and I know you as really good-hearted people. And it's very kind of, it's a wonderful thing to be able to see that. And please try to see each other in the same way. Don't pick out the small little bad things, because the big picture is very beautiful. And so this is kind of the idea. When there are good qualities available, we focus on those good qualities. We make something out of them. And we sort of forget about the bad ones. And who cares about the bad qualities anyway? So what does that mean? Does that mean that if someone has bad qualities, they will take advantage of us? Not necessarily, because even though you only see good qualities in a person, we all know that people have the potential for doing sometimes they may do something bad. So we don't become stupid, just because we see the goodness in other people. And so you're still aware of what may happen. You're still not, you don't put yourself in harm's way or anything like that. You still have an awareness. It's just that you focus on the good qualities in the other person. And one of the interesting things that often comes up when some people have asked me this in the past, they say, well, isn't our job as Buddhists to see things according to reality? And if I focus only on the good qualities, am I seeing things according to reality, or am I just deluding myself and pretending that things are different from what they are? And it's a good question, right? It's actually an important question to answer, because we want to see things according to reality. But this is the point. The point is that when it comes to other people's qualities, there isn't any given reality. What is that reality? If you take one person and you look at this person, one person will say, oh, this is my best friend, they're wonderful. Another person will say, I don't like that person, they are bad. So what is the person? And often we don't know. We can't say who the person is. People are complicated. So there isn't any reality very often. It is just subjective opinions about a person, and the reality doesn't really exist. So it's the wrong question to ask when we talk about seeing things in accordance with the reality. It does not relate to the qualities of other people. Seeing things according to reality has to do with things like the three characteristics of impermanence, non-self, and dukkha. That is where seeing things according to reality matters, not when it comes to seeing individual people. So the question should not be, what is reality? It should be, what is useful? What enables the spiritual practice? That should be the question. And what enables the spiritual practice is seeing the good qualities in other people. If you do see also the bad qualities, well, then we forgive the bad qualities, because it is no surprise that people have bad qualities. And we live in a very complex world. We live under the influence of all kinds of dodgy characters and people. Life is full of people who are kind of not as pure as we would like them to be. Society is difficult. Everything in the world is sometimes difficult. Of course, people have bad qualities. It's a miracle people haven't got more bad qualities. And if you think about, wow, my friend, you have so few bad qualities. How wonderful. Don't say that. Say, talk about the good qualities instead. But, it's actually amazing that people don't have many bad qualities, because the influence is sometimes so bad. And then you really kind of open up your heart to other people. So we should ask, when it comes to these kind of things, we should ask what works, not what is true, because there is no truth very often. All there is a changing landscape, changing character traits. One day they are nice, the next day they are not so nice, because we're always changing around. And then you rejoice in people's good qualities. Wow, what a wonderful thing that people have these beautiful qualities. How lucky I am to be their friend and to have such companions in the spiritual life. So this is the way that this works, and you can see how, if you think like this, it's going to be really good. You sit down and meditate, and you're going to feel really good about yourself if you think like this. You feel good about yourself, other people feel good about it because you are kind to them, and everyone gets lifted up because of this. But so that is the idea here. But I want to come back to the idea of the rag robe wearing monk just for a second, because every time I tell this story, I also tell the story of the rag robe wearing monk from the Vinaya Pitaka. Some of you have heard that story before because you have come to these things before, but you can hear it again. This is the story of the rag robe wearing monk. This is from the Vinaya Pitaka. This is like secret teachings. Lay people don't get to hear these things because Vinaya Pitaka is all the rules and the regulations for monastics, right? I remember I was giving a talk at a conference in Perth, maybe 10 years ago or something. And this was like a very broad conference. There were people from the Vajrayana, and there were some people from Russia. Did you know that there's 2 Buddhist republics in Russia? Called Buryatia and Kalmykia, I think they're called, something like that. And that's 2, so Russia has 2 Buddhist republics. One is very close to Mongolia, because Russia is such a vast country. It goes all the way over to Mongolia, even north of China, that area, close to this famous Lake Baikal. And the other republic is close to the Caspian Sea. You know your map, Caspian Sea? Caspian Sea is in kind of Central Asia. Because the Russians have always done all kind of strange things. They're moving people around in the country. So they moved all of these people who really lived in Asia before. They moved into the Caspian Sea. And so they kind of made an artificial Buddhist republic next to the Caspian Sea. That is the only Buddhist republic that belongs to Europe. So Europe has a Buddhist republic. Now that you didn't know that, I'm sure. And now you know that, right? So this is new information for you. So this is not really Dhamma, it's just kind of worldly information. So there's a little Buddhist called Kalmykia, which is kind of in Europe. But the point of the story is that I was giving this talk, and I was talking about the Vinaya. And what was I talking about? I can't remember exactly what the talk was about. What was I talking about? Never mind. I was talking about the Vinaya Pitaka and how the Vinaya works. And you can see these people were horrified that I could talk about the Vinaya. This is secret monk's business, right? Should not be told to lay people. They looked at me and they were kind of really looked horrified when they looked at me. But I didn't really I thought it's good for lay people to know the Vinaya. That's what I thought. Yeah, so, because otherwise, how do you know if the monks are practicing in the right way? You have to know a little bit about the Vinaya. And so because of that, I'm going to teach you a little bit of Vinaya right now. Are you ready for that? Exciting, isn't it? Now, sometimes people ask me whether they should read the Vinaya. And the first thing I say is, please don't read the Vinaya unless you really want to get depressed. Because the Vinaya is really about all the bad things the monastics do, right? Because it's all about the laying down of the rules and the regulations. And one of the things that we find out very quickly is that people 2,500 years ago are exactly like people now. Yeah, nothing has really changed in 2,500 years. People are people. And this is kind of, in one way, that's good. Because if you just read the sutras, you read about all of these enlightened beings and about these amazing things. And then you hear stories like, oh, at the time of the Buddha, everyone got enlightened easily because they had such incredibly good karma from the past. That's why they got reborn with the Buddha. And so these days, people have bad karma, you can't get enlightened anymore. Wrong. Yeah, that's wrong straight away. So throw that out of the window. And the evidence, if you look at the Vinaya, it balances things out. And it shows you that in those days, there were a lot of dodgy characters, just like these days. Yeah, nothing has really changed. And that kind of gives you a balance. And it gives you a sense that, of course, there is hope now as well to practice well and to gain the deep insights into the Dhamma, just like it was possible at the time of the Buddha. Nothing has really changed. So there are no excuses, unfortunately. So, which is good, right? To get the excuses out of the way so that we can kind of get into the practice properly here. So this is the Vinaya Pitaka. Now, one of the nice things about the Vinaya Pitaka is that it has all kinds of little stories in it. Yeah, stories that you have probably never heard before because it's tucked away in the Vinaya. And this one story I'm going to tell you now, this is a story found in the Vinaya Pitaka. And this is the story about the rag robe monk. Yeah, the rag robe monk, and because you are looking for rag robes, you will look for those anywhere. Wherever there is extra cloth, you will go there to get the cloth. Now, one of the places where to find cloth is at the cemetery there. Yeah, because at the cemeteries, they kind of chuck out the bodies, the dead body, and the bodies, for modesty's sake, they're kind of wrapped in cloth, right, when they get chucked out in the cemetery. So the Buddhist monks, they would go to the cemetery, they would unwrap these dead bodies and take the cloth, right, for the robes. What do you think, Jens? The trick is to get it soon, right? Not to wait too long. If you wait too long, it's going to be really disgusting. So go fairly quickly, otherwise it's going to be, you can't take it anymore. So, but also you cannot go too quickly, right? And this was the mistake that one monk did. He went too quickly. The body had just been thrown out, dead very recently. And then as he starts to unwrap this dead body, taking the cloth, suddenly the corpse starts to speak. Don't take my cloth. And kind of the monk, the monk being a monk, being desperate for cloth, he says, shut up, you're dead, you have no say, be quiet. I'm going I need this cloth for my robe, right? I have a rag robe. So he takes the cloth, right? And he walks off. And then when he walks off, the dead body gets up, right? This is the first zombie incident in recorded history. Yeah, there's nothing before this. Hollywood came a long time afterwards. I think Hollywood may be inspired by the Buddhist suttas. That's what I reckon. The Buddhist suttas came first, then came Hollywood afterwards. And so he walks and he looks over his shoulder and he sees this naked zombie coming behind him. He had no cloth anymore. And then he starts to run, right? And he walks really fast and he kind of wham, slams into his scooter, slams the door, and the zombie kind of bang and falls down outside. The last of the zombies has had it. No more energy left in that zombie. And so that is the first zombie incident in recorded human history. And so what happens then? What happens then is that, well, they tell the Buddha, right? Oh, this zombie was walking, and he took the cloth, right? And it was a bit scary. It was nice. What should we do? This is what they do to the Buddha. Every little thing happens, they go to the Buddha to ask. Yeah, okay, You know, how often should I shave my hair? How long can my nails be? What happens if I eat garlic in public? And the Buddha has to answer all of these questions. I feel so sorry for the Buddha. Right? Wow, so many questions. No wonder the Buddha was happy to die at the end of the conversation. This is why Ajahn Brahmali says Kushinara is the best place, before the Buddha finally let go and get there. And so then the Buddha says, oh yeah, no, so, I will lay down a rule, and the rule is that, this is why the monks have so many rules, by the way, lay down the rule that you should not take blood from a corpse until the corpse is cold. This is one of the rules that we have as monks. Isn't that kind of interesting? It's kind of unique. So this is why I said again, why we have so many rules. Yeah, you can imagine if they have that kind of rules, you have many rules. So if you see me taking a cloth from a warm corpse, you have to tell me off. Yeah, wait, it's not cold yet. Hold on there, and then I have to wait. So this is the zombie here, the zombie story. So I told you there's some interesting stories in the Vinaya Pitaka, but you have to wade through a lot of pages. Before you get to these interesting stories, and most of the stories are not interesting at all. They're really kind of terrible. So I still wouldn't recommend you to read it. I can tell you those stories that are interesting, but not that many of them. So anyway, that's the story that belongs with with the idea of resentment. So that is the first way of overcoming resentment. Remembering the good qualities in people. All right. So are you ready for the next one? Yeah, good. So let's go on to the next one. How should you get rid of resentment for a person whose behavior by way of speech is impure, but whose behavior by body is pure? So now we have the inverse. The speech is now impure. In the previous one, the speech was pure, but the body is now pure. In the previous one, the body was impure. So what's the difference? Why make this distinction there? And to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure myself why this distinction is made, but my guess is that the qualities can change sometimes. Sometimes a person may have some good qualities, and at a later time it may have other good qualities. So we may have to be a bit flexible with how we look at other people. Always be open to new ways of looking at people. I think that may be the reason why we have this in there. So then comes the simile again. Suppose there was a lotus pond covered with moss and aquatic plants. Then along comes a person struggling in the oppressive heat, weary, thirsty, and parched. They plunge into the lotus pond, sweep apart the moss and the aquatic plants, drink from their cupped hands, and be on their way. In the same way, at that time, we should ignore that person's impure behavior by speech and focus on their pure behavior by body. That is how to get rid of resentment for that person. So the same idea, the only difference here is the difference in the simile. So this is a slightly different simile. You have a lotus pond, and the lotus pond here is the person. And you are covered with moss and algae or aquatic plants. And this is like your bad qualities, right? This is the moss on you, the moss and aquatic plants are bad qualities. And then comes this person along in the oppressive heat. So oppressive heat, presumably here, is a metaphor for ill will, anger or whatever. You're seeing the negative things in another person, so you feel oppressed by seeing those negative qualities, and you get a bit upset about it or whatever. And you are weary and thirsty because ill will, after a while, tires you out. I don't know if you noticed, while you're angry, you kind of have extra energy, and then afterwards you feel really exhausted. Anger has an exhausting quality afterwards. When you are thirsty, well, that means, I would guess, you're looking for a solution to the problem. You're trying to find a solution, and you are parched. That's probably part of the weariness, perhaps. So what do? When you plunge into the lotus pond, You sweep apart the moss and the algae, the aquatic plants. Yeah, you sweep those away. You don't focus on those. Don't have anything to do with them. And then you drink from the water, the pure water underneath. Yeah, these are the good qualities of the person. The pure water underneath, you drink them in. You imbibe them. You take them with you. Yeah, of course, when you drink them, you carry them with you. Yeah, in your heart or in your tummy or wherever. And then you carry them along afterwards as a consequence. In the same way, we drink up the good qualities of other people and we take them with us in our heart, in our mind for the future. Yeah, it's a beautiful idea of drinking up the good qualities of other people, yeah, taking them on board, whereas the rest of it, you just sweep it aside. Why? Because it's rubbish, it's bad, it's useless. Throw away the rubbish. Bad qualities, focusing on that is not useful. So in this way, you then get rid of resentment for that person. Now, of course, when we get rid of resentment, this is also a way of practicing metta, if you like, because the first step of metta is always to get rid of resentment, getting rid of the anger and developing positive perception is basically two sides of the same thing. Yeah? So what we're seeing here is really how to develop metta, the initial stages of that, giving up the ill will and the anger. So it's easy, right? Easy peasy. Everyone can do this. This is the nice thing about this. And really, it is about putting your mind to it. It's about having the faith that you can do it. I know some of you who are here, you will read this, and then you go back home and nothing will happen to that. Yeah, I know that because I know that from personal experience. This is what happens to me as well. First time you read the word of the Buddha, you say, yeah, whatever, and carry on. Yeah, and you don't really take it on board. So because I used to do that, I know some of you will do it as well, especially those of you who hear these things for the first time. Yeah, first time you hear things, it doesn't really sink in properly. I'm sure that some of you practice these things really well because some of you have been around for a long time. So I know that some of you do this, but for some of you, it's still going to take a while before you get it. But remember, these are very practical teachings. They work. Yeah, they have an effect on your mind. It is really about applying it. And so come back to these retreats every year. Listen to the same simile every year. And as you do that, after a while, you're going to start to work on these things. Yeah, it just happens automatically. And so as before we're talking about brainwashing, that is exactly what is happening. Yeah, after a while, you start to really understand what is going on there. Your mind gets sorted out. You do get brainwashed to a certain extent. You get conditioned, yeah? Conditioning and brainwashing is the same thing. And then you start to do it. But please remember, these things work. These are really powerful things. If you can change your mind, your entire personality, your entire habits, who you are as a person is going to change as a consequence. Yeah, this is like the root of the problem. We're dealing with looking at people in a new way. You're changing your perceptions, and as we have seen throughout, perceptions are at the root of how the mind works. So if you can get the perceptions right, all the other factors of the mind will fall into place, including your speech, including your conduct, bodily, all of these things will fall into place. Yeah, so this is really powerful things. Don't take it too lightly now. All right. So these are the first two. So let's move on to the third one. How should we get rid of resentment for a person whose behavior by body and speech is impure, but who gets an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time? Suppose there was a little water in a cow's hoof print. Then along comes a person struggling in the oppressive heat, weary, thirsty, and parched. They might think this little bit of water is in the cow's hoof print. If I drink it with my cupped hands or a bowl, I will stir it and disturb it. Stir it up and disturb it, making it undrinkable. Why don't I get down on all fours and drink it up like a cow and then be on my way? So that's what they do. In the same way, at that time, you should ignore that person's impure behavior by way of body and speech and focus on the fact that they get an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time. That is how to get rid of resentment for that person. Yeah, so here we have someone who is body and speech no good, but they get an openness and clarity of the heart. So what does that mean? And the Pali word here is vivarana. It is the opposite of nivarana. Nivarana is the Pali word for hindrances, the 5 hindrances, yeah, the things that block meditation. 5 hindrances is the standard grouping of qualities that we try to get overcome so to make meditation work. So the 5 hindrances are sensual desire, yeah, or interest in the 5 sense world, ill will, tiredness and lethargy, yeah, the sleepiness in the morning, whatever it might be, restlessness and remorse, because remorse is like a restless mind, and then doubt is the 5th one. These are the standard set of 5 things that block meditation. Yeah, so for those of you who are new, yeah, so I kind of explain properly. So if the mind is nivarana, it has those 5. Vivarana is the opposite. It is rid of those 5 qualities. So it is a mind that is open. It is not kind of closed in by these hindrances. And so this is what is meant here. Yeah, so there's a person who body and speech are not so good, but they still get an opening of the mind. And that may sound strange. How come people get an opening of the mind if the conduct is bad? I have been saying all along, be kind. Yeah, and if you're kind, you will have good results. If you're not kind, you'll have bad results. And doesn't this contradict that? Yes, it contradicts that. You're right. So what's going on? And what's going on is that when I say this thing, this is the general truth. And when you are kind, you will have good results. But there's always exemptions to these things. And the reason that there are exemptions is that we come from this unfathomable past with all of this conditioning coming with us. And some people will have very good conditioning from the past, where the mind is still very pure. And even if they start doing bad things, that purity of the mind will stay for a while before those bad qualities have an effect on them, right? So the world is often very complicated, very complex. And so we should be very careful with judging people. Very hard to know sometimes what is going on in somebody here. So be very careful with judgment. Okay, if you see something bad in others, okay, you see something bad. Of course, you acknowledge that, but don't judge them too harshly. Maybe they have good qualities. Look really carefully, right? And so what this message of this particular simile here is, yeah, there's only a small bit of water in the hoof print of the cow. There's only a tiny few good qualities in that person. And it means that we have to focus very narrowly on those good qualities. Yeah, that's just what kind of the message from this. So there's a little water in the cow's hoof print, only a little bit of good quality in that person. Then you come along, you're still struggling in the oppressive heat, you're still angry or whatever, you have all these bad qualities, you're weary, you're trying to find a solution, you're thirsty. And then you see the water in the cow's hoof print, right? You see the good qualities in that person. You look behind the surface of bad speech and bad actions, and you see something beautiful in that person. And then you think, how can I drink up these good qualities? And it says that if you use a bowl or cupped hands, you will stir it up and make it undrinkable. Yeah, so the idea here is that you have to be very gentle, yeah, not look too much in that direction, not look too far in that direction, but focus down very narrowly to be able to see the good qualities that are there. Yeah, and then when you do that, you get down on all 4 like a cow, and you kind of slurp up those good qualities, the water in that cow's hoof print. That is the idea here. Yeah, so you really kind of try your very best to have metta. This is kind of the idea here. Yeah, if there is anything good to see, then you look for that, because that is a very positive way of dealing with people, to have metta towards them. That's why we try so hard to use this particular technique. So why is that? Why do we go to such an extent to have metta, to be friendly towards people, to see the good qualities? What is actually going on here? The next example that comes afterwards is when someone has no good qualities at all. And when someone has no good qualities, we have to use a different strategy. Yeah, that is where you have compassion. So you can see here we try to have metta as much as we can before we go to compassion. If metta is possible, we do that, and only if it is absolutely possible do we try to use compassion. Yeah, and I think the reason for that is that when we have compassion, compassion is about wishing someone out of suffering. Yeah, may they be free of suffering. It means that our ideas about the world are close to seeing suffering. Yeah, and when we see suffering in the world, it can often lead to negative consequences. You may feel a bit bad or sad or depressed or whatever, because seeing suffering can be painful. And so focusing on compassion can be dangerous because it is too close to focusing on suffering. So it can lead to negative mental consequences. But the idea of metta, seeing the good qualities in someone and wishing someone well on that basis, does not have that downside. Yeah, there are no negative qualities there. So metta is always positive. It always leads to energy. It leads to positive consequences in terms of meditation, whatever. So I think this is the reason why there is this great focus on metta first. And if you read the suttas, in the suttas you have the 4 Brahma Viharas, the 4 divine abidings, yeah, the metta, karuna, mudita, and upekkha, loving kindness, or friendliness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and then equanimity, the last one. These are the 4, and they always occur in that sequence. Metta is always first, then comes compassion. Yeah, these are the 2 most important ones, and the ones which are focused the most on. And as you read the suttas, you notice that when the Buddha or anyone talks about these Brahma Viharas, metta is the one that is talked about the most. Yeah, friendliness, loving kindness is the one that is most focused on. So it is number 1 among these 4. So yeah, so you try your best to see the good qualities in someone if you can. But sometimes you can't. And sometimes all you can see is bad qualities in someone, and this is the next one. So let's have a look at the next one and see what Venerable Sariputta has to say here. How should you get rid of resentment for a person whose bodily behavior and verbal behavior are impure, and who does not get an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time? Yeah, so here we are dealing with a person who has no good qualities, bad speech, bad bodily actions, bad mind states. Everything is bad. And the first thing I want to say, even before I read anything else, is that when we see bad qualities in a person like this, remember that the badness is in your perception. Yeah, it is your interpretation of that person. It may not be what the person actually is like. Another person may see this person in a different way, and they may see good qualities there. So the first thing is to be a bit humble about our judgment of others. Okay, I cannot see any good qualities now, but I should not have an absolute judgment about this person, that they are bad, because I may not have seen certain things, they may change in the future, I may change, everything changes. So I'm not going to lock them into that judgment of being bad. And this, I think, is a very important point, because sometimes it is really harsh to form too strong a judgment about other people. Yeah, sometimes other people, you can feel that other people are judging you, right? And it's like now they have put you in the box, you are that bad person. And it's really hard to get out of that box. Yeah, they lock it up and throw away the key, and you are stuck in that box. Yeah, and it seems really unfair because you know that you have good qualities as well. Why are they judging you so harshly? Yeah. So actually, it is an act of compassion not to judge people too harshly, to say, I don't know. I will allow you to evolve. I will allow you to become a different person in the future. I'm not going to put you in that box and forever call you a bad person. You may be Hitler, you may have killed many people, but maybe in the future you can be reborn and become a good person. Even Hitler might become a good person in the future, or anyone else who is truly bad in this world. And then this is an act of kindness towards others, because we are allowing them that opportunity. We don't judge them badly, yeah? And it is really powerful. I have noticed with people like Ajahn Brahmali, I mentioned this yesterday, but I maybe mention it very briefly again, is that when people give you the benefit of the doubt, when people always see the good qualities in you, yeah, you kind of live up to that to some extent. Yeah, you try to kind of live according to other people's perceptions of you. But if people do the opposite and they put you in that box and you are bad, then it's almost as if you have nothing to lose anyways. You might as well be bad, right? It's almost like that. You kind of give up because what can you do then? So there's always an act of compassion. It is encouraging for other people. You are encouraging them to be kind, to develop themselves, to move in a good direction by seeing their good qualities and not judging them too harshly. Yeah, so this is kind of part and parcel of this. So be very careful with judging people, because it's kind of harsh to do that. So then it goes on with the simile. Yeah, suppose a person was traveling along a road and they were sick, suffering, gravely ill. And it was a long way to a village, whether ahead or behind, and they didn't have any suitable food or medicine or a competent carer or someone to bring them within a village. Then another person traveling along the road sees them and thinks of them with nothing but compassion, kindness, and sympathy. Oh, may this person get suitable food or medicine, or a competent carer, or someone to bring them within a village. Why is that then? That they don't come to ruin right here. Right here. What do we know? In the same way, at that time, you should ignore that person's impure behavior by way of speech and body, and the fact that they don't get an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time, and think of them with nothing but compassion, kindness, and sympathy. Oh, may this person give up the bad conduct by way of body, speech, and mind, and develop good conduct by way of body, speech, and mind. Why is that? So that when the body breaks up after death, they are not reborn in a place of loss, a bad place, the underworld, hell. That is how you should get rid of resentment for that person. So this is really beautiful. Yeah, it's really such a different way of looking at someone who is full of bad qualities from how we often look at people with bad qualities. They are like a sick person. Yeah, they have a very serious problem. And just like a sick person, when you are gravely sick, you are moving towards maybe your own death or towards some very bad destiny. In exactly the same way, anyone who is truly a bad person, they're also moving towards a very bad destiny in the future. So think of people who are bad as sick people, right? They have moving towards something bad. And the moment you see them as sick, the moment you see them as deluded, the moment you see them as not really understanding what is going on, it changes your entire view of that person, and you start to have compassion then. Yeah, when you see a sick person walking on the road, no one to look after them, no medicines, no nice hot water to look after your throat, yeah, whatever it is. What does that look like? How can you not have compassion? When you see someone sick, do you have compassion for them? Or do you tell them off for being sick? What? You're sick? That is bad. You should not be sick. Yeah, of course, we don't do that because sicknesses happen. Yeah, sickness is part of what it means to have a body. If you haven't got a body, you're going to get sick sometime. That's the nature of things. So you have compassion for them. In exactly the same way, you understand that when people have bad qualities of the mind, it is the nature of people to sometimes have bad qualities of the mind. It is not because they want to have those bad qualities, just like they don't want to be sick, they don't want to have bad qualities of the mind, but because of the conditioning of the past, because of the habits of the past, because of the program that has been written into their minds in deep past time, in past lives or whatever, now that program is playing out, and they have no choice but to follow that program, because that is what happens when programs play out. And so when you think like that, you understand that they are victims. Just like a sick person is victim of the virus or the bacteria or whatever, this person is a victim of past, whatever that past might be. Maybe people that have influenced them badly, maybe whatever happened in the past, we don't know. And then you start to understand that actually they are worthy of compassion. I'll tell you a story which I tell sometimes. I haven't told it for a while, I think, but it's a really nice story to illustrate this particular point. And this was a story, and actually Ajahn Brahmali also mentioned it at the conference recently, but I'll tell it in a slightly different way, maybe. And story of a person who was one of the ex-presidents of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia in Perth. And he had a Catholic background, and so he didn't believe in rebirth. He thought rebirth was complete rubbish. And I tried to tell him, what do you mean rebirth is rubbish? You kind of get your views sorted out. But he was kind of stubborn character, so what can you do sometimes? So anyway, he decided at one point to have a past life regression. So we have another man in the BSW who does past life regressions, a really nice man. I think some of you may know him. And so he went to this man and he did the past life regression. And during this regression, he remembered all of these things from a past life, right? Many, many details. And then he came out of the regression, and this man, this regression person, told him, well, this is what you said when you were under hypnosis. You mentioned all of these kind of things. And, what does that mean? And he kind of felt uncomfortable about this. Because if this was true, it would mean that rebirth was a reality. But he wasn't ready. He was in denial. He did not want to know this reality. So he was in denial for a few months. And then after a while, he kind of got used to the idea. So he decided to go back to the regressionist and went through the same thing. And now he remembered even more details of the same, maybe past lives. Who knows what it was that he was remembering. And so after the second session, and he decided to collect all of the data that he had, and then he went to the archives of Western Australia, archives about all the immigrants that came to the country, because he remembered being an immigrant from Ireland. He was very poor, leaving from Ireland and then coming to Australia and entering the army or navy or something like that, and built up a career for himself as a farmer in the southwest of Western Australia. And he remembered his wife, remembered children, he remembered names, remembered what the house looked like. There were so many details, And so he then went to check all of these things out. And after a while, he became convinced about rebirth, because everything checked out. What he remembered, such a person actually seemed to have existed. So he could no longer, for him, rebirth had kind of been proven, So that was kind of fascinating story. So what has that got to do with this? Well, what it has to do with this is that when he died in that last life, the last thing that he remembered was how proud he was of his life. He had been a very poor person in Ireland. Ireland was always very troubled economically. And that's why there are so many Irish people everywhere around the world, especially in places like Australia and North America. And so he remembered building up with his two hands, really hard labor, really hard work, building up a farm, making a fair amount of money and passing it on to the next generation. And he felt very proud of all this hard work. And then in this life now, he is also working really hard. And he has built up a company from scratch, and he's selling some kind of software to the mining industry in Western Australia. Everything is about mining in Western Australia, and he's selling this mining software, and he's making a lot of money. And he was feeling really proud. I have done this. This is my work. I've really worked hard, and he feels proud about himself. But now, and he remembered his past lives, he realized for the first time that actually I'm not working hard in this life because I want to, because I have chosen to kind of build up a career, build up a powerful company. He understood for the first time, it wasn't actually his choice. What he was doing, he was running on the same engine, the same characteristics, the same qualities that he had in the past life, which was to work really hard. And now he was just following the same habit pattern from the past. And instead of feeling that I have done this, I have built up this company in this life, instead of feeling that, he suddenly felt trapped instead. He was trapped by the past habits. He was working hard, not because he wanted to, but because it was a habit from the past. Yeah. And this is really what is happening in the rebirth process. And this is true for all of us. Whatever you are doing in this life, whatever your characteristics are, wherever you are coming from, the reason you are the way you are, a large part of that will be because of what you were in the past. Yeah, that is kind of scary because it means you are trapped. You're trapped in your habits, in your personality, in all of these things. These things are traps. They're not something to be proud of. They're kind of neutral. You're either proud of them or not proud of them, but they are a force coming from the past, propelling you in a certain direction, and you haven't got much choice at all. And so this is how we then think about people who have problems with bad conduct by body, speech, and mind. They are trapped in this way, and they're just playing out this program that was laid down in the past life, and now they are reacting in the same way. And so they are victims of the past conditioning here. They don't really have much choice. And once you see that, you can have compassion for anyone in the world. Why? Because you know that probably they don't want to be like this, but they haven't got a choice. They are trapped in those personal habits. So this is then how you see them as a sick person. Yeah, it's a sickness of being trapped in certain habits. And then instead of saying to them, don't behave like this towards me, this kind of self-centeredness, this living in your small world, being afraid of the world outside because the world outside is so dangerous. Instead, you open up your heart to these people and you have compassion there. It's a beautiful transition. Yeah, when we have this small mind about me, the self-centered idea of the world, it is very small, very confined, and we feel that we are up against the world outside of us. The world seems dangerous, and suddenly you turn the table and you look at things 180 degrees different view, and you have compassion. Your heart opens up to the whole world, and instead of being self-centered, you kind of lose that entire self-centeredness, and your mind becomes expansive instead. It's a beautiful moment when that happens. So this is the right kind of attitude, yeah? And it's a very, very powerful ways of thinking. That's why they are in the suttas. They wouldn't be there unless there were powerful ways of thinking. So use these things in your life. And as you use these things in your life, you will feel gradually. It takes time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. Gradually, your attitude to other people changes. You look at people in a new way. And after a while, you can't really get angry anymore. Yeah, it's almost impossible because you see people differently. If someone is shouting, you think of them as a victim. Yeah, it's kind of a completely different worldview in a sense. And this shows you the power of perceptions to sort out your life and to make you a more compassionate, kind, and caring person. And then everything falls into place because of that. So let's look a little bit more detail at this simile, because it's a nice simile and it's worthwhile considering with a bit of care. So you have this person traveling along the road, yeah? And this is, I think, like a highway. It is where there's no kind of habitation, no one is around, and you are sick, yeah, suffering, gravely ill. So this is kind of all the bad qualities that you have. And there's a long way to the village. In other words, a long way where there are people who can kind of help you, who can help to maybe to gain right view, whether behind or ahead. And there's no suitable food and medicine. Of course, a suitable food and medicine is like the Dhamma, right? there's no Dhamma around. You have been born at the wrong time, or in the wrong country, or in the wrong family. You were born in a triad family, and the triad family says, do bad things because bad things is good. Bad is good. It's a black-white oxymoron. And there's no food or medicine. There's no competent caring. This is like the Buddha, yeah, the competent carer, someone who looks after you and to bring you to the village. Maybe the village, you don't know what the village, maybe that's the monastery or something. Yeah. There's nowhere to go. None of these things are available. Yeah, and this is kind of despairing. Yeah. And often hear people say, oh, how can I teach Dhamma to my relatives, right? And sometimes you can't because they're not ready to hear the Dhamma. And then you kind of just have to wait till they are ready to hear it. And then another person comes along, yeah, seeing them, this is you. You see this person, and of course, when you see them, you have compassion for them. You have kindness and sympathy, and you're hoping that they will get food and medicine. And of course, if you can be the supplier of that food and medicine, well, then you do supply it. If you can be the carer, well, then you care. But sometimes we can't. Sometimes we just have to look at from a distance, because people who are full of bad qualities, they are often painful to touch, and so we cannot get too close because the pain kind of comes our way. Sometimes you have to, unfortunately, keep your distance from such people. So I think that is roughly kind of some of the ways of understanding the simile, how it fits in with the Dhamma. So, there you are. That is the time to have compassion when someone has just bad qualities, nothing good to be seen in them. And that is how that works. So now we come to the very last person, and this is the opposite of the previous one. How should you get rid of resentment for a person whose behavior by way of body and speech is pure, and who gets an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time? Yeah, so this is the person with all good qualities, and this is like the arahant, or someone who is close to an arahant, or someone who has really good meditation practice. Yeah, so lots of good qualities, easy to see them. Suppose there was a lotus pond with clear, sweet, cool water, clean with smooth banks, delightful and shaded by many trees. Then along comes a person struggling in the oppressive heat, weary, thirsty, and parched. They would plunge into the lotus pond to bathe and drink, and after emerging, they would sit and lie down right there in the shade of the trees. In the same way, at that time, we should focus on that person's pure behavior by body and speech, and on the fact that they get an openness and clarity of the heart from time to time. That is how to get rid of resentment for that person. So this here, it is kind of easy. Yeah, there's so many good qualities, and sometimes you wonder, how can you get angry and upset with someone who has so many good qualities? Well, it's actually quite easy, because often the anger resides in us. Yeah, we are upset, our ego doesn't like what is going on, or whatever it is. We can get easily angry with the most beautiful person in the world, because the problem often is our defilements and not actually the person at all. So you see in the suttas people getting angry with the Buddha. Yeah, you get this sometimes. Like, what's his name again? There's Akosaka Bharadvaja in the Samyutta Nikaya. Akosaka means abusive. I think it's just a nickname. No one is called abusive for sure. So this is Bharadvaja the abusive. That's kind of literally his name. And it's kind of a nice little story. It's this Brahmin comes to the Buddha and he shouts at the Buddha, and because he had some family members who became monks, you are stealing my family members, they're becoming monks. Yeah, you bad person. Or he's really angry. Yeah. And after he's kind of finished with his anger, the Buddha kind of, shrugs his shoulders and he says to Bharadvaja, you can be angry, but I don't accept your anger. Yeah. And Bharadvaja says, what do you mean you don't accept my anger? And he says, well, it's just like when you go to a meal. Yeah, if you invite someone to a meal, Yeah, and then everyone eats the food, and then when everyone leaves, the leftover food, who does it belong to? Well, it belongs to me, says 𝐁𝐫𝐚𝐡𝐴, because I fed everyone in the same way. The anger you're trying to give to me, it belongs to you. Yeah, you will have to kind of bear the result of that anger. He thinks, what? And of course, this is this is true, right? It belongs to you. You have to kind of the Buddha doesn't accept that anger. You have to deal with the consequences, and you will have to kind of bear those consequences in the future. So we should be careful with getting angry in general, but certainly around people who are very pure, right? Sometimes if I get a bit upset with Ajahn Brahmali, I think, better be careful. Okay, don't get upset with Ajahn Brahmali. So not a good idea. So all we have to do then is we have to see those good qualities, yeah, remember that. And then after we remember the good qualities in that person, then this other thing happens, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, first of all, there's the lotus pond with clear, sweet, cool water, clean with smooth banks. Yes, smooth banks as well. So the area around the person is like delightful, shaded by many kind of trees. And so then after drinking that water, which is imbibing all the good qualities and remembering all the good qualities, after that you sit down right there in the shade of those trees. You kind of come to the Buddha and you understand that the Buddha is a really pure and beautiful person. And so you just hang around the Buddha afterwards. You don't leave again. The Buddha said, go away. No, no, I want to stay. I want to stay here. Go away. No, I want to stay here. So you hang around the Buddha afterwards, yeah, because why? Because you understand that this is a good place to be here. It is nice to be around people like that, with such qualities. And, for those of you who, I mentioned the other day, I mentioned about this monk called Ajahn Brahmali in Thailand, who was there. And he's that kind of person. He has this magnetic pull on people, yeah, because he has so much kindness, so much metta. It's like you get drawn in by Ajahn Brahmali, and people just sit there, they kind of bathe in his metta. Relax. And people really relax, because when someone doesn't judge you, you can really relax in their presence. Yeah, okay, this person, okay, whatever, I can be whoever I am, and I can really be at ease with that. And it feels a bit like that, yeah, and you kind of, you sit around and people just drawn in, magnetic pulled in, bang, you kind of sit there. And then I think I mentioned the other day, he has this kind of enormous bowls of sweets next to him. And every kind of every half an hour, one of the monks comes, he has a big bucket full of sweets, and he pours another bucket into this enormous bowl. Yeah, so there's a regular supply of sweets coming into this enormous bowl. And then Ajahn Brahmali takes a little dipper, yeah, and he puts it into the big thing, and he throws out to everyone, the whole audience, and everyone scrambles for the sweets. Yeah. And then you get the sweets, and then of course you take those sweets, and it's kind of very symbolic because Ajahn Brahmali is such a sweet monk, and then you get the sweets from him, then you take them with you, and then of course you take them home, and then whenever you take them out, it reminds you of Ajahn Brahmali. So it's kind of, when you go there, you think this monk is nuts because he's throwing sweets out, but after a while you understand that there is a meaning to this, right? It actually works. Then when you come back home, you remember those qualities, and it makes you more peaceful and kind because you remember those things. It actually has a beneficial effect in a sense. So yeah. Anyway, that's Ajahn Brahmali. It's a little bit like this. The Buddha is probably much more, but nevertheless, similar kind of idea. And then you become a disciple of the Buddha. Yeah, you hang around and you learn, and then gradually you also grow in those good qualities because you have a teacher who shows the right way. And this is the power of such teachers. And then it says, relying on a person who is impressive all around, the mind becomes confident. Yeah, so because of a person who is really super duper, your mind gains confidence because of that. And yeah, I don't know if you have noticed that, but it's kind of easy to notice when you meet people with special qualities, it does something to you. Yeah, it reminds you that there is something in the world that is different from ordinary life. In one of the suttas, it talks about this. It says that even the sight of an arahant is greatly beneficial. Because when you see an arahant, it opens up an idea that a person does not have to be an ordinary person. It is possible to be different, right? An arahant is just, there's no self-consciousness there. There's no sense of me or mine. There's a kind of this naturalness in the movement and everything. There's no sense that, you know, oh, look at me kind of thing. There's no defilements. There's endless peace and endless ease in whatever they do. Yeah, there's kindness at all times. And there's something, when you see that, you realize that you are in the presence of something which is not normal. Yeah, people aren't like this. There's something else going on. And that opens up the possibility of a different kind of life, a different kind of reality. And this is the beauty of coming into presence of special people like this. It opens up another possibility there. And then that gives you a sense of hope, yeah? Because especially in life when things are very difficult and the world is going bad or whatever, it is important to have that idea that something else is possible. There is an alternative. It is possible to develop the mind in a way whereby we go beyond all of those things and we're able to you know, be at peace even when everything around us is collapsing and falling apart. And this is what this kind of opens up for us. It's really, so it's incredibly beautiful. And this is how it is often explained in the suttas. Yeah, the first thing is that you do, the starting point very often of the Buddhist path is what they call Sappurisa Sanseva. It means hanging out with the Sappurisa, the superior people. These are the Aryas, the noble people of the world. First of all, you hang out with them, and then you realize something special is going on. Then when you hang out with the Sappurisa, you get to hear the Saddhamma. The Saddhamma is the true Dhamma, the true teaching, the teaching that is in accordance with the way the world actually is. And this is what is the Buddha's teachings, right? So first of all, we see these people, we think, okay, maybe I should hang out with them. Then you hear the Dhamma. And then from hearing the Dhamma and hanging out with these people, confidence arises. Confidence that there is something more in the world, confidence that these teachings work, right? And from that faith and that confidence, then arises the whole path. Then you start to think in the right way because you think in accordance with those teachings. When you think in the right way, this is here called yoniso manasikara, wise attention. From that then comes the virtue, yeah, the sense restraint, the clear comprehension, and then fulfilling the virtues. And from fulfilling the virtues comes the meditation, the four satipatthanas. Where am I quoting from? I'm quoting from, if you want to see the suttas, one of my really nice suttas, Anguttara Nikaya 1061, called the Avijja Sutta. And then from the meditation, you have the four satipatthanas, watching the breath, comes the arising of the awakening factors, the 7 factors of awakening, and from that comes Vijja and Vimutti. Vijja and Vimutti is insight and liberation. So it starts out, yeah, it begins with the idea of seeing someone who is noble, someone who is special, someone with really different kind of qualities. The Buddha, there still are such noble people today in the world, and sometimes you get to meet them, and it is a really nice eye-opener when you have that opportunity. Yeah. So this is the idea, yeah, that you have here, that relying on a person who is impressive all around, the mind becomes confident, and then the path happens. And one of the great, but if you read the suttas in the right way, and you know what to look for, then you will see a lot of beauty in there. And the simile in this particular sutta that I'm quoting now, AN 1061, is the simile of the rain on the mountaintop. And I have taught this simile many times before, but it's such a beautiful thing. And for those of you who are new, who have been on my retreats before, I will teach this for you, especially. Yeah, this is especially for you. So this is the simile of the rain on the mountaintop. And the Buddha says that this idea of hanging around with the noble people is like the rain on the mountaintop. And when it rains on the mountaintop, and it keeps on raining and raining and raining, and that rain forms into little streams. Yeah, the little streams, they go down the little gullies, and then those little streams merge into larger streams. And as the rain keeps going, those larger streams, they start to swell and become larger and larger, and eventually they go into the lakes. Yeah? And as the rain keeps falling on the mountaintop, eventually those lakes fill up. And when the lake is full, it overflows, and it runs down into the larger lakes. And as the rain keeps going on the mountaintop, eventually those large lakes also become full. Then they overflow, and they go into the large rivers, like the Ganges River and the large rivers of the world. And if the rain keeps coming, eventually those large rivers, they go all the way into the ocean. And this is how the Dhamma works. The rain on the mountaintop here, as long as it keeps raining, it eventually has to go to the ocean. And the raining here is like hanging out with the good people, hanging out with the Buddha, hanging out with the suttas. Don't say that these suttas are boring. You're hanging out with the Buddha, for goodness sake, right? This is the best hanging out in the world. You're going to hang out with the Buddha. If you keep on hanging out with the Buddha, if you keep on hanging out with the Saparisa, the rain keeps on falling on that mountaintop, and then you learn the Dhamma. Then the path happens automatically. Let the rain keep coming. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Come back to these teachings. Allow yourself to be brainwashed by these beautiful teachings. The brainwashing means the defilements become less. It means your views get straightened out. All you have to do, keep the rain coming on that mountaintop. And one day, as you do that, that water will reach the ocean. One day, as you keep on hearing that Dhamma, you too will reach Nibbana. Nibbana here signifies the ocean. It's a beautiful simile, and it shows you the power of right view. Yeah, right view, when they get strong, when that brainwashing really works, it makes the whole path happen. Why? Because you want it to make happen. Yeah, you see what is going on, you understand the danger of not doing it, and you will be motivated to do these things. Why? Because of right view. That is what goes on when you hang out with the right kind of people. So this is what this is about, yeah? This is the power of being inspired by the right kind of people at the right time, at the right place. So relying on a person who is impressive all around, the mind becomes confident. A mendicant should use these 5 methods to completely get rid of resentment when it has arisen towards anyone. So that is the end of that sutta. So go and find some arahants in your life. And if you can't find arahants, find someone who is heading in that direction. We've got 5 minutes left. I'll tell you another story, an arahant story. And this is a story many of you will have heard before, because this is one of another of the really nice little stories that tell you something about what it means to be an arahant. Yeah, or maybe, I don't know if this person is an arahant, but maybe an arahant. They sound a bit like they could very well be an arahant. And this is a story of Ajahn Brahmali, you know, when he was traveling around in Thailand, usually after 5 rains, you know, you had been monk for 5 years, you go on Tudong. This was kind of the tradition in Thailand. You go traveling around and you get to meet many of these great monks that are available, especially in the northeast of Thailand. It was famous for all the great monks. Why? Why was there so many great monks in the northeast of Thailand? Because it was the most boring place imaginable. It was nothing else to do except become a monk, right? It was flat, boring, nothing going on there. That's why I had the best monks. So the better the scenery, the worse the monks. When it's really boring, the monks are really good. And maybe the same goes for the nuns. I'm not sure when Bosuki, but you can explain that later on. And so Ajahn Brahmali goes traveling around and he gets to meet many of these monks. And one of the famous monks at that time was Ajahn Tate, very famous monk. And he had because he was so famous, and many people thought he was an arahant, he had been given this enormous hall by the king of Thailand called the Mandapa. Beautiful hall. I don't know if you've seen the Thai architecture of temples, beautiful architecture in the temples, yeah, really astonishingly beautiful. So he had this beautiful, beautiful hall with kind of the gold and the blue and, you know, the roof and all of these kind of things. Really, really nice. And so Ajahn Brahm goes to this mandapa, yeah, to this large hall to find Ajahn Tate. Ajahn Tate has this really, really big reputation there. So he goes to the hall, and then he takes off his shoes and he wants to go inside. He has been told that Ajahn Tate is there, opens the door, he looks inside the hall. Ah, there's no one here. And he's about to close the door. And wait a minute, maybe there was somebody there, yeah. And then he opens the door again and he looks inside. And there in the corner of the hall, he actually sees this person, yeah. And that is Ajahn Tate right there in the corner there. And this is how you can expect arahants to be, yeah? Arahants are people who kind of fade away. You don't notice them anymore. Why? Because they have no ego. Most people in the world like to say, I am here, look at me, right? This is kind of what we are like. I am doing this, right? And we do things to be noticed sometimes. But arahants are the opposite. There is no ego. In fact, they prefer to fade away because if they are not noticed, they can just do their own thing. They can go away to the cave and meditate or whatever, right? So this is kind of the sign of the arahants. They fade away. They kind of look a bit like the curtains, yeah? You can't really tell. It looks a bit like a human being. Is it a curtain or is it a human being? You're not really sure. This is the arahants for you. And so straight away, when Ajahn Brahm saw that, he became really peaceful, right? He had come to this hall, he had traveled all this way to ask all of this question from this great arahant, but because of the nature of a person like that, yeah, kind of the thinking mind kind of drops away, and you become really peaceful in their presence. And so he becomes really peaceful. And so he walks into the hall, and he goes up to Ajahn Tate, and then he kind of bows down to him. And Ajahn Tate says to him, okay, welcome. You know, why are you here? The questions are no longer there. The questions are gone. And he said, no, why? Not sure why I'm here, right? Because the questions are kind of gone at this point. It just feels really peaceful. And that is kind of the power of someone who is very special, yeah? You come into their presence, you feel peaceful, you feel at ease, you feel not judged. And you wonder, you know, why did you come in the first place? Actually, maybe there aren't any questions to be asked anyway. Sometimes the example of someone like that is far more important than the questions. Seeing someone like that reminds you of the Dhamma, and it kind of often resolves all of the issues that you had. And so Ajahn Brahm is quite happy. So he bows down to this person. And it's kind of interesting. When you bow down to someone who is very special like that, spiritually advanced, it feels different. It doesn't feel like you're bowing down to a person. Sometimes when we bow down to a person, it can feel yucky if it's the wrong kind of person. Yeah, if someone has a lot of ego or whatever, it feels yucky to bow down to them because it feels like it doesn't feel right. It feels like you are, you know, they will take advantage of your bowing or whatever. Yeah, it doesn't feel right. But when someone doesn't have an ego, you're just bowing down to good qualities, and it feels really natural, and it feels really right. And it feels like when you're bowing down to a person like that, it feels like you are building those same qualities inside of you when you bow down to them. So this is the power of an arahant, or someone who's gone a long way on the path. Everything becomes very easy, very natural. You build up the qualities in the right way. Bowing down feels good. It's like when I bow down to Ajahn Brahm, it feels really nice. It feels really appropriate. Same kind of idea. And so then Ajahn Brahm leaves, yeah, and this becomes kind of one of the kind of important events in his life. It's kind of fascinating. We often think that the really important events in our life are the kind of events when something really special happens, something really out of the ordinary. So we see someone flying through the air or something, all that, it must be really important. But sometimes the really simple things are often more important than these really fancy things because they show something profound. Seeing someone flying through the air, well, that's just like entertainment, right? There's nothing more to it. It's not really profound, really. to see something like this is really profound, and it changes something inside of you, and it allows you to practice the path more fully because you see that. All right. So that's it for now. Am I supposed to sign books or something, Eileen? Or Bhante Sujato. Oh, okay. So are you okay? So hold on for a couple of more minutes. I'll just very briefly tell you about Bhante Sujato's retreat. It was Pang Hong asked me to just give you a very brief introduction. So this is Bhante Sujato. He's Australian monk. Yeah, he lives in Sydney. I just came from Sydney just before I came to Singapore, and I was just with him in Sydney. He's a very good friend of mine, and I have known him for 25 years or something, and we were kind of baby monks together. And so he will be coming to Singapore, and he is one of these really brilliant people. He's really like a brilliant person in terms of his, he's the only person in the world who I think has translated all the suttas, from Pali into English. I don't know anyone else who has done that. And power going off. He spent 2 years on the little island of Taiwan, I mentioned that yesterday, called 𝐁𝐫𝐚𝐡, where he translated the suttas. So he is very interesting, and he's also a good meditator as well. He's not just a kind of intellectual, special person, but he's also a good meditator as well. So if you have an opportunity, then he will be coming to Singapore to lead a retreat on the 21st to the 25th of February. So this is a chance to hear slightly different Dhamma. He's a different kind of teacher from me. Everyone is a bit different. He gives a different angle. And when you hear a different angle, it broadens out your ability to understand the Dhamma. So if you have the chance, I would really recommend you to take this opportunity. Is that good enough, Pang Hong? Yeah? Okay. Thank you. So, and then my sales job. So let's do it. Okay. So, if you want to, I have been asked by Eileen if I can sign some of those books. So if you want my signature, I'll be very happy to do so. So, okay. Yeah. Is there a chair as well, or do I have to stand? Is that, yeah, there's a chair. Okay. Over there. Now I see. Okay. All right. Okay, everyone. So we'll see you back again at 7:30.